Thank you again for coming in to Liberty Health Sciences. Some of the key areas of differentiation with us are, first of all, we entered into Florida State roughly over a year ago, and Florida was an area that we really identified that we saw as one of the biggest opportunities in the entire country for various reasons that I'll touch on a little bit later on. Florida has really demonstrated, and it's grown to the perspective that we thought it was. It's actually exceeded any of the numbers that we considered earlier on when we actually entered into the marketplace. And we'll talk about how we've developed into the market space right now and how we're moving into other areas. Additionally, we're well capitalized. We have no reason to raise capital right now. We are fully funded on our Massachusetts operation as well as Florida, so we don't need any more capital at this point. It's a good position to be in with all the volatility in the marketplace. We have experienced and capable management team. When you take a look at our management team, you'll see something that's quite different than most companies. You'll see cultivators, horticulturalists on our list, and it really is because of our ethos. We come from, this is really the DNA of Aphria that was embedded into our company. And when we entered into the space, we really focused on what is the core area that the space will need. A lot of people have had challenges in Florida. We've had none. We continue to grow our platform up to 200,000 square feet, which you'll see in some of the additional slides moving forward. Significant and midterm opportunities for growth in this space. Florida, as you've seen, has had explosive growth. We're seeing one of the leaders in the space being Trulieve right now. They've already shown about $80 million this year in revenue and top line revenue, and that's really for us to grab. Florida has a tremendous opportunity in this space. We're seeing fully medical market. We're seeing higher consumption rates than what we're seeing in other marketplaces, and it really is our market to start taking away and chipping away market share in the space right now. And that's really the opportunity that we see, but we focus on the core area. We focus on cultivation, operation, really on having the best business fundamentals as we continue to expand our platform in Florida. Additionally, seed to sale certified program. We've done this before. We worked in the Canadian market space for over 4 years. We worked within the ACMPR. We worked within a very, very rigid system, and we've learned a lot. What we did is we brought that to the US. Although there was a little bit more flexibility in Florida, we never deviated from our standards. We still use 500-step program. We still use the same QA, QC. We still do the same testing measures within all of our facilities. So we've never deviated from it, and actually what we want to do is force the state to move upwards and really start working at a much higher standard. That really is a very tough barrier to entry for many people. As much as we push the standards upwards and we start imposing higher standards to testing, it makes it very hard for some of our competitors to really operate in the space. And that's really where we like to play. We like to work in marketplaces that have, very limited licenses, but also very high standards. And then our R&D facility. What you'll see in some of the pictures later on is our 360 Innovation Lab and some of the capabilities we've had. We've built this facility not for what's available today on the marketplace or what the regulators allow us, it's what's going to be available tomorrow. And that's really a critical point of differentiation for us. You'll see our extraction philosophies and some of what we've already implemented, but some of the products that we can produce within our facilities, it's pretty overwhelming, and actually kudos to the team for where they've gone. And then lastly, we talk about Aphria and the DNA of who Aphria is. Aphria, when we first started in this journey, had a very large position in LHS. Obviously, based on TSX regulations, they've needed to divest. It is now sitting with a third party, and they have the opportunity to jump back into the US space and purchase into LHS moving in the future. So that's a positive position for us to sit in. The other piece is we are co-creating recreational brands with each other. It's good to build a platform where you have a brand that exists not only in Canada, not only in the US, but in North America. So we are working together to start co-creating some of those brands. So our core team, myself, I've spoken to many of you before, so I'll keep it brief. I come from regulated packaged goods. I come from alcohol, tobacco, and most recently Red Bull. I always say I've done everything that was probably detrimental to mankind, and now I'm doing something that's really helping it. So, I really believe in what we're doing. I believe in the cause. When I first started on this journey in cannabis, it was with Metrum Health Corp, which we sold to Canopy a little over a year ago for $430 million. We didn't start the journey with an attempt to be the best recreational brand. We started the journey to be the best medical, and that really filled the void with Canopy, and that's why Canopy really acquired us. I think the ethos of what Liberty Health Sciences is today is not too dissimilar. We haven't deviated aggressively in adult use, and we aren't, not at the immediate time. We think that there's more of an adjacent space that offers a bigger opportunity, which I'll talk about a little bit later as well. When we go into our management team, we have a very seasoned CFO. He comes from Cushman Wakefield and Dream. We also have Cole Cacciavillani. Again, we talked about our DNA and our ties. Cole is the co-founder of Afria. So he's also our chief horticulturalist. So again, the SOPs, the IP, the know-how that we've implemented really runs deep in our organization, and that's why we really know what we're doing operationally, and that's why we can scale. Stephanie Kabaki, our VP of Marketing, also comes from Alco Beverage, former Director of Strategic Partnerships. She's in the front row if you have any questions for her later on. Stephanie, want to put up your hand? And then we also have Louis Swartz. Louis is a great asset to the team. Louis comes from Taylor Fresh Farms, and I'm not sure how many of you know what Taylor Fresh Farms is, but they produce all the lettuce, tomatoes for many of the larger companies like Taco Bell and so on. He oversaw over 8 million square feet of greenhouses. So when we talk about this space that we're building 100,000, 200,000, 2 million square feet, Louis oftentimes says that's quite small. And Louis has the experience to scale, and he's done this nationally and internationally. So a great asset to our team. Again, the reason why I put this up is not to really focus on this, but to see that we are operational in our fundamentals. It's about really being good. It's not about market promotion. It's really about being good and building a good business. So as we move forward, Vic Neufeld is our chairman. Again, Afria. John Cervini, co-founder. Afria, co-founder as well. And then we have another individual called Aaron Soria. We've seen a lot of movement from this family over the last few months with Soria Private Equity. They were one of our first investors. They are one of our largest investors, and they've also accelerated quickly into other spaces of brands. They have a significant investment in Plus. They have a significant investment in another 10 brands that they've decided to participate in California, and they have a significant investment in California market in terms of retail. So they are really retail experts. For those of you that don't know the family, they operated over 3,000 retail outlets previously, and they have become a major asset to our retail expansion. So we talked about this a little bit earlier. Florida is exactly where we wanted to put the flag in the ground and win. Florida alone for us is a big enough opportunity, but we know we can't be a one-state wonder. We also know that we don't want to lose focus in Florida. So we want to fulfill what we said we're going to do in Florida, but we also want to move forward into other states because there are states that have tremendous opportunity. Michigan and New Jersey. New Jersey, we have a current application on the second phase within the state. Michigan, we also have an option. And then Ohio, we have a dispensary and waiting for some more news on that entire vertical. So Florida, why did we do it? It's pretty simple. When you take a look at the numbers, Florida alone is going to be bigger than all of Canada. I think the latest read, actually, it's at 170,000 patients in the state of Florida alone. That's pretty tremendous, especially when you take a look at, of the 14 licenses now that are available in the space, only 6 of them are actually operational. So think about that opportunity in Florida alone. So we don't want to lose sight of what we're doing. You can go occupy another 5 states and you won't have this opportunity and lose your focus. We really want to stay focused on this one. Additionally, why was it a great space for us to move into? So it's 20.6 million people, but when you really think about Florida, what is it? It's one of the most aged demographics in the entire US. Our average patient that we have at Liberty Health Sciences is 60 years old. Our first outlet that we opened up with Liberty Health Sciences was in the Villages. So if you don't know what the Villages is, it's an adult lifestyle community that you have to be 51 years of age or older. and they are heavy users for medical purposes, and guess what? They like to spend. So it's important for us to really target this marketplace and be strategic in where we're going. Physicians that are now permitting is closer to 1,700, and about 30% of the population of Florida currently qualifies for some form of medical documentation, because chronic pain is one of them, and it's very overarching in the state of Florida. But we do know the market's still in its infancy, and that's why we've designed our program to be so heavily medical. The other reason why we really liked Florida was it was a complete vertical. So you can have the cultivation, processing, and you have the opportunity to open up to 30 dispensaries within the state. You'll never see that happen in any other state. That's why those licenses are so valuable. So Florida was the first state we walked into, and you'll see some of our developments over the last year. So Florida, what have we done? We have 2 cultivation sites, which is interesting for any state, because generally they only give you one and it's locked to your physical address. Florida, you can add an additional one, or you can add multiples. So we're in Gainesville, Florida, and the reason why we're in Gainesville, Florida is for many reasons. Again, we're operators. We take a look at things in different ways and different lights than many people. Who saw Hurricane Michael yesterday rip across the Panhandle? Wasn't favorable. Who saw the previous hurricane ripped across the other coast? Very rare that a hurricane rips down center of bodies of land. And then you take a look at Gainesville. We've never been affected, and that region's never been affected by a serious storm in over 50 years. Yesterday we were untouched. We had no cultivation issues, and we're in greenhouses. So it's a pretty interesting dynamic to be part of. We purchased our first greenhouse, and we've expanded through an acquisition of a second one. And I'll touch on the space a little later on. As we've gone into our dispensaries, we've talked about some of the dispensaries that we've opened up. So we have the Villages. The Villages was our first one. Port St. Lucie, Tampa, St. Pete's. We also, in addition to that, by the end of this month, we'll be opening up an additional 3. So we're full speed ahead with all of our construction sites, and it just happened to be that October is going to be a significant month for us through permitting and openings of our dispensaries. But with that, we have over 20 leases signed across the state. So we're in various positions in terms of licensing, opening, and construction and permitting. But we will have, by the end of this month, 7 open, which is significant because each of these outlets are doing between $3 to $5 million annualized. So what's also important? We realized through some of the research that we put together was that this was a very aged demographic. This was not a youthful group that was coming into our doors. What did we also realize? We realized that the physicians actually were not that well educated in terms of how to prescribe. They only take a 2-hour course in Florida. So we realized we needed to be part of it, and that was going to be our highest point of retention. I don't want to say we dumbed it down, but we did simplify the process. Our outlets or our retail or our dispensaries, however you may call it, are called cannabis education centers. Why? It just screams out. It's something that's comforting to people. They want to be educated before they use. The average consumer who's 60 years old probably hasn't tried cannabis before, but has heard about it and how it's helped one of their friends. And when they come in, we need to take a more consultative approach in really educating them on how to use them. Because guess what? When they go somewhere else in Florida, and it's not to diminish the value of a bud tender in an adult use marketplace, but if someone just gives them a product and it doesn't work, or it gives them an adverse reaction, they lost them. So we've really taken a very different, more clinical approach on our first dispensaries. We're not foolish enough to believe that it's always going to be clinical. In 2020, the bill will change, in my belief. It will become adult use. So of the 30 dispensaries that we have, you will see a secondary concept being popped up that won't be cannabis education centers to really be able to speak to that consumer. As we move forward, these are our 2 cultivation facilities. The one in Alachua County was 25,000 square feet. That was our first acquisition. It's 37 acres. We were going to expand on that facility until we found a state-of-the-art greenhouse about 5 miles away. And this state-of-the-art facility is right there to the right, and this allowed us to scale a year faster and about at half the price. So what did we do? We purchased it, and that's a Liberty 360 Innovation Lab. So both of these combined, you can see just the capacity that we have. This is fully functional. That one is currently about 1/3 functional. It'll be complete by the end of this year. By the end of this year, between both facilities, we'll have over 225,000 square feet. I believe we'll be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in full capacity within the state. Again, it talks about who we are as operators. We'll be producing 14.6 keys a year. And from a patient standpoint and usage, we'll be able to actually service 113,000 patients. You're probably saying there's only 170,000 patients in the entire state. Do you really think you're going to take that many patients? Well, there's rationale behind it, and I'll talk about that right here. So we are actively pushing the state to move from not just singularly a one-to-one situation where everything you produce is also sold in your retail. It's also, we believe that wholesale at some point needs to become available, or distribution to some of the partners within the state. Right now, it's not available. We believe, as we look at the landscape, the general size of most of the active participants is between 40 to 50,000. Ianthus has a facility that's not complete yet, and I believe also Trulieve. But what we do want is to be able to sell wholesale to them. Why? Because we're low-cost producers. There's good margins in selling bulk product when you're a low-cost producer. We're selling at 80 cents a gram right now, or producing at 80 cents a gram. It's pretty remarkable. When we go to the larger facility, we estimate we'll be at 60 cents a gram. So that will be a second throttle that we use outside of our retail. Retail obviously is very important to us, but wholesale also offers a tremendous opportunity in terms of margin. As we move forward, the innovation pipeline, we talked about our 360 Innovation Lab. So you can see some of the extraction methods that we're doing and our capabilities that we have. And many of these capabilities actually can't be put into use right now, but if you're going to build a facility, build it once and build it right and have the capabilities to be able to do the R&D. So what are some of the products that we have available? So in terms of finished products, we can do everything from capsules, oral solutions, edibles, skincare, topicals, vaporizers, concentrates, and water-soluble technology. Edibles are not permitted in the state of Florida. They will be permitted in the next 6 months, we believe. And as a result of that, beverages will also be permitted in the state of Florida. So we want to be prepared now. You only build once and you build it right. In addition to that, we're a house of brands. My background is from consumer packaged goods. I know that the consumer comes into your facility because sometimes they want brand variability and they want other options. We can't just believe that our in-house brands will drive traffic into our stores. Consumers are savvy now. They're going different states. They're understanding different brands. They're liking different brands. So we've built a partnership and exclusivity with the following brands in our stores. These are all exclusive to Liberty Health Sciences in Florida. PAX, it's one of the first times they've ever done an exclusive offering. We have it for a year, and we believe that if we get that out to the marketplace, that will really drive traffic in our store. Incredibles, Mary's Medicinals, obviously Afria being our most medical offering, and then Soleil. Soleil is one of the co-created brands that we worked with Afria. We saw a very large growing consumer base of what we call entry-level consumers who are female, wanted medical products, but wanted them to be more lifestyle as well. And Soleil is really going to address that. We're also working on other products in the upcoming months that we'll be launching within our stores. So we talk about the 3 states we're currently in, and I can't give any forward guidance into the states that we'll eventually be operating in. But as we take a look, we have Florida, Ohio, and Massachusetts. I always leave this slide because we hear a lot of Canadian participants, and just these states are much bigger than Canada. And that's really, I think we're seeing the market trends shifting over into investment from Canadian players into some of the Americans because just the sheer size of the American marketplace. And this is really ultimately why. There's more consumers. It's going to go adult use. It's easier to get into the marketplace right now before it becomes heavily saturated. And that was kind of the vision of what we had just moving into these states. And with that, we also have a hemp strategy. There's a reason why we have 436 acres in Florida. We do believe quite confidently that Florida will be changing their hemp policies in the upcoming months. We also all know in this room that the hemp farming bill will change. So we need to be prepared for this. We are looking at how to integrate this within our business, and we are creating brands. And we do have brands already in the pipeline. So we do have things such as Hempathy, Windsor Edwards. Some of these are celebrity driven. Some of them have more indigenous communities that we're working with. So we do have brands in place and we do have a hemp strategy. Again, more to come on that in the next few months. But we are looking heavily at this sector. And the reason is because we are so medical. We think it's a further stretch for us to move from medical all the way to adult use. I also believe the bigger opportunity here is well-being. I think well-being, when it's in OTC, when it's on every single shelf in the marketplace, I think that you're going to see a much larger consumer base really gravitating to that segment rather than moving into adult use. So I think ultimately that's the adjacent area that we will move into versus see us move into an area of all of a sudden being a heavily aggressive adult use business. And it doesn't mean that we'll abandon it, but you need to know your consumer and you need to know where you're good at it. Everyone wants to scatter and be everything to everyone. You can't do that in any marketplace. I've done it before on consumer packaged goods. You will lose. So we know where we are, we know where we're good, and we know where we have permission from the consumer to enter into. And so this will be a heavy segment for us to move into. With that, I want to thank you for coming in today. Thank you. Questions? Alan?
No, I'm all right.
Okay.
I'm curious about your strategy for, it sounded like you wanted to take patients from True Leaf. I'm sure you also want to take future patients, but I'm just curious about such a dominant player. How are you planning to compete with them? And also, in Florida, if you fill your prescription with one entity, does that make it hard to switch?
Great question. So twofold. So I'll touch the regulatory aspects. When you do get a prescription, it goes to a doctor, then it goes Department of Health. Department of Health issues you a permit, and then you're open to use anyone. Okay, so you are open to, no, you're not locked into a specific producer. Why do we believe our philosophy actually works in retaining, but also taking patients from others? We do believe that the average consumer in Florida is not, I wouldn't say, doesn't have a tremendous amount of experience with cannabis. And I think if you treat it like a retail environment, then that consumer will have potentially an adverse reaction, not a great experience in your store or something along those lines. I think when people go into our outlets or our retail, I think when they see that consultative approach, when they see that we're more clinical, when they see we talk about standardization and products always being the same, I think that's when you start winning the consumer over. And we're seeing it. We're seeing a lot of consumers coming in and saying, oh, thank God, we were so confused about the segment. We were so confused about what to use. We don't know what we're doing anymore. So that's really our core focus on how we're going to steal patients and grow our market share. And, we were not the first in the marketplace. But I would say that we are being more strategic on where we're putting things. And as a result, our retail outlets are actually in better strategic areas rather than mass and spread across the entire sector. The other piece that I believe in heavily is accessibility. People don't want to wait in lines, and people do not want to go through a very complex system to get cannabis once they're educated on it. I would say that our delivery system is state of the art. We do have notification. They can track the vehicle. We really make it convenient for individuals and comfortable and safe. So those are really our methodologies on how we're going to win market share in the space. Any other questions? Great question. Let me touch on COGS structure. I'll touch on COGS structure in that question. I'll also touch on in-store internal brands versus what I would call licensed brands, and then touch briefly on 280, because 280 is what 280 is. But I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it. So let's start with in-store brands. So yes, we do have brands that currently We are paying licensing fees which diminishes some of the margins. Aphria, we do not pay any licensing fees anymore, which is one of the benefits of the TSX is that we can't reimburse them and move money to Canada. So that is fully in our pocket. We will also be launching in the next month or so many of our internal brands that really touch different consumer bases that we don't also need to give some of those licensing fees away. So you'll see more of those really come out in the next few months. COGS and cost structure. We are very laser focused on that. I said that we were at 80 cents a gram finished product. We believe we'll be at 60 cents a gram when we have our full facility built out. Again, we believe in the methodology of greenhouse. We very rarely deviate outside of that. We just don't believe in it, especially when an entire marketplace goes about 70% non-flower. And in Florida, in fact, right now, the entire state is non-flower. So really, it's a great state for you to be in a greenhouse. I'm not disputing the fact whether you can grow better premium in indoor or outdoor. It doesn't matter, in fact, because no flower is permitted in Florida. If it is permitted in Florida, we will change some of our methods. But really, we will focus on cost because we're extracting every single product that we have. So we're laser focused on that. In terms of cost structure in our stores, we do run, because we have a more clinical approach in our stores, I would say that we do run a little bit heavier. But we believe that it pays off in terms of retention. We don't want patients waiting and sitting in seats. We don't want patients asking for questions, and we don't want patients not getting product quickly. So we do run a little heavier, but we believe that it balances each other off. So our cost structure is very important to us, and we are focused on it. I'll touch on 280 a little later on, maybe one-on-one, but it is what it is. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. So we use our ERP. I'll touch on our ERP because that's the central nerve of the entire business. We use Microsoft Nav, so we actually use what I would say a mid-grade. We're not prepared for anything that large corp would use at this point, but it is very good. It's a Microsoft product. We do use Sprout, which is a retention program, which is very, very good. We use that obviously to track some of our patients. Gives us full CRM integration, understanding our patient, the usage occasions. We've just also released Floor Pass, which we did on our last press release. That is really a closed loop information system that goes between us, the state, and the physician. And what that allows us to do is understand the consumption behavior of the patient, but it also locks them into using our particular products, because if they get off our products, then the doctor cannot continue the research that they need. So that gives us almost a full circle loop on understanding the efficacy of our strains, how much they're being used, how often they're being purchased, and that's really the data that we use for all of our patients. Yeah. He was asking the cost structure of our extraction based on CO2 and ethanol. Okay, let me touch on that. So I don't have the exact cost of labor hours that I could provide you, but I will tell you that we actually yesterday just received approval from Department of Health in Florida to start using ethanol. We do know that ethanol is a more cost-effective manner for us to use. We do believe, though, that the patients still, those that know, are still asking for CO2. Currently, we're using two 2x10 water machines. We will be moving to a Vitalis in the next month, is the machine that is preferred for us. We have an in-house ethanol machine that we've purchased, and we are also going to go to hydrocarbon, but the state will not allow us right now to use hydrocarbon. So we are going to go primarily, I would say about 30 to 40% of our product will go to ethanol. Yeah, so organic. You know, we do blind intercepts with patients, and sometimes it's important to ask the patient questions rather than just assume what they believe. And when we ask them those things, how important it is you do see about 10% of the segment saying, hey, it is pretty important. But you're seeing bigger indicators in the responses. Patients are becoming a little more savvy to pesticide use, which feeds into organic, not completely, but it does to a certain degree. They are becoming a little bit more knowledgeable on heavy metals. I've heard a few start bringing that up right now. Can you tell me about the heavy metals in here? Do you use pesticides? But it is still about 10% of the consumers that we're seeing that are talking about organic. I'm not diminishing that it's not important. I'm not suggesting it's not important. I'm just suggesting that if we needed to look at things before that, we would probably be looking at ensuring that it's a safe, standardized product. Yeah, so we are looking at it at the Alico facility. That's 436 acres, and having a certain area that's going to be organic. It does take time to do proper certification, so you won't be seeing it in the next year.
What are you guys doing in the CECs in Florida? Because if you're taking that kind of medical clinical approach to the marketplace, what do you do? What's the patient experience like when you're first walking off the street? What do you do for those spring barriers?
Yeah, so great question. You asked us what we're doing in our cannabis education centers that differentiates us. Our cannabis education centers, if you were Judy, who was, and I'm obviously making a very big generalization, 61 years old, probably coming in from the villages, has heard that arthritic pain has helped her friend a lot more, but doesn't know what to use. They would come in and obviously they'd be greeted, so we have someone greeting them and assessing them right away and understanding their medical documentation. They then go to one of the individuals that do actually talk to them within a room. It's a private, independent room that we have set up within our facilities. Then it becomes a little bit more clinical. We start assessing what the medical documentation says. In many cases, in Florida, unfortunately, what we're seeing is doctors are just giving very broad prescriptions. We see things such as high THC products for first users with anxiety. Imagine the adverse reactions that you'd get. Our people don't act like doctors, and I always tell them not to pretend they're doctors, but they know well enough to maybe say, hold on a second, let's not use that or give that to that patient. So they'll first of all assess what the document says. Then secondly, they really want to understand how they're going to use it. Florida does not specify in many cases how to use it in the application. So sometimes our people will suggest that they would use a topical over an oral solution or vaporizing. So it does go through a pretty extensive session, but we do think that 30-minute time frame actually benefits us. Imagine if they go somewhere else and all of a sudden they walk up to the counter and they say, hey, this is what I have, and all of a sudden they give them that high THC vape. I guarantee we lost them from the category. They won't come back. They'll go to traditional medicines. And then we have a feedback loop with the physician. Yeah. My belief is that for you to be competitive in what I would call the wellness category, you will need to do it outside of the current MMJ framework. I just don't think that your cost structure will be properly set up for you to be competitive within an MMJ framework. So hemp, first of all, needs to be part of everyone's strategy. If you don't have a hemp strategy, I think you're dead. So with that being said, what is important about hemp? So hemp not only is the CBD, but it's also the essential fatty acids, the fiber, so you can go into a few different sectors, as you probably know better than I do. You can go into food, topicals, cosmetics, and a few other areas. And that's why we believe we need to get in hemp. It's a cost structure piece, but it's also the biomass that you're getting out of the hemp. And we do believe, though, that we can get some efficiencies out of what we have at our current MMJ structure if the state allows us to do it. Or maybe we don't. But it's really about leveraging those strengths, but you do need an independent system. You also can't cross-contaminate and have a hemp field right beside your MMJ. That'd probably be disastrous. So that's why we have 2 facilities set up right now. Okay. Yeah, is what they're forecasted annualized. That's right. That's correct. Any other questions? Yeah, so Ohio, we do have a dispensing license currently. New Jersey, we also have an application. Michigan, we are looking at extensively, and we could trigger one of those if we wanted to, but right now we're laser focused on Florida. If there's no more questions, thank you for coming, and enjoy lunch.
Thanks, George.